Tonight, I already know how this evening ends. I've known for 3 days, ever since the call from my publicist. Though my family doesn't know yet. And watching them not know. That part, I've been looking forward to more than I'd like to admit. My father built Holloway Construction from a single truck and a phone book. He likes to say that at dinner parties, usually right before he pivots to asking someone's net worth. The house he built for himself in Greenwich, Connecticut, has 7 bedrooms, a wine cellar, and a formal dining room with a table that seats 14. Tonight there are only 9 of us, so we rattle around in it like spare change in a tin. I drive up in my 2019 Honda Civic. I keep it because it runs fine and because I genuinely do not care what it says about me. My sister's husband Bradford has already noticed it from the window. I see the curtain move. The front door opens before I can knock. The housekeeper, a kind woman named Rosa who has worked here for 11 years, takes my coat. "Miss Laurel," she says, with the small smile she reserves for me specifically. I've always thought she sees more than she lets on. "Hi, Rosa. You look great." From the living room, my mother's voice carries over the low jazz she always puts on for family dinners. "Laurel, is that you? You're 12 minutes late." Not hello. Not good to see you. 12 minutes. I find them gathered near the fireplace, my father with a scotch, talking to my Uncle Harold about interest rates. My mother rearranging a centerpiece that does not need rearranging, my sister Claire and her husband Bradford standing close together the way people do when they're presenting a unified front. My brother Tommy is there too, home from his 2nd year at Dartmouth, looking at his phone. "There she is," my father says without fully turning around. Claire looks me over the way she's always looked me over, starting at the shoes, moving up. She's 4 years older than me. She married Bradford at 26, before she'd had to figure out who she was on her own. I used to think that was sad. Now I think it was just a different choice. "How was the drive?" she asks. "Fine. Easy. Still in that same apartment in Raleigh? Still." She nods the way she nods when she's storing information for later. My mother kisses me near the cheek. "You look thin. Are you eating?" "I eat constantly. You look tired too, Mom. I'm just saying." My Uncle Harold shakes my hand. He's a decent man who has never known quite what to make of me. "How's the tech thing going?" he asks. "Good," I say. "Really good." "Still at that startup?" There's a specific word, still, that my family uses like a scalpel. "Still in that apartment." "Still at that startup." "Still not married." It implies you are behind, stuck, failing to move forward in ways they've already mapped out for you. "Something like that?" I say. Bradford refills his glass and doesn't offer to refill mine. He's a corporate attorney at a firm in Manhattan, the kind of man who mentions it within 4 minutes of meeting anyone. He and Claire have a brownstone in the West Village and a weekend place in the Berkshires and a daughter named Lily, who is 3 years old and is currently upstairs with a babysitter, which is the only thing about this evening I'm genuinely sad about. I like Lily. She hasn't learned yet to look at people the way her parents do. Rosa appears in the doorway to announce that dinner is ready. We file into the dining room. My father sits at the head of the table, my mother at the opposite end. Claire and Bradford take the right side. Tommy drops into the chair next to me without looking up from his phone, until my father gives him a look. I sit with my back to the window, which in summer would overlook the garden, but tonight shows only my own reflection in dark glass. The first course is a butternut squash soup that my mother did not make herself but will describe as her recipe. "Tommy got a 3.8 last semester," my mother announces. "Nice," I say, and I mean it. "Pre-law," Bradford says, nodding at Tommy the way men nod at younger men they're deciding whether to mentor. Smart move. Tommy looks briefly uncomfortable. I don't think Tommy actually wants to be a lawyer. I think Tommy wants to make music, but that conversation hasn't happened yet in this family and probably won't until someone forces it. "Laurel, are you still doing the coding thing?" my father asks. He says coding the way someone might say origami. A fine hobby, harmless, nothing you'd build a life on. Software, yeah. Any of these tech companies ever going to actually make money? He chuckles. Harold chuckles along with him. Bradford offers a tight smile, Some of them, I say. I read that 60% of startups fail in the first 5 years, Bradford offers. He says it pleasantly. He always says things pleasantly. 80%, actually, I say. By year 10. He blinks. Well, there you go. Claire refills her wine. She's been quiet, which means she's waiting. Claire is strategic in a way that looks like restraint, until it doesn't. The soup bowls are cleared. Rosa brings out the main course. Prime rib, my father's standard for family dinners. The meal that says we have arrived without saying anything at all. My mother asks Bradford about a case he's working on. Bradford talks for 6 minutes. I know because I counted. Then my father turns to me with the expression he uses when he's decided to be generous. You know, if the startup thing doesn't pan out, there's always a place at the firm. We're expanding to Charlotte, actually. That's close to Raleigh. I appreciate that. I'm serious, Laurel. You're smart. You've always been smart. You just need to apply it somewhere that has a future. I think I'm okay. You said that at 27. You're 31 now. He says it gently. That's the thing about my father. He delivers these assessments gently, which makes them harder to push back on because they don't feel like attacks. They feel like concern. Maybe they are concern. I've spent years trying to figure out the difference. Claire sets down her fork. Here it is. Speaking of finances, she says, with the tone of someone who has been building towards something for 45 minutes. I was talking to Aunt Patricia last month. She mentioned that a few years ago, you borrowed money from Mom and Dad. She pauses. And that you were on food stamps for a while? The table goes quiet. My father looks down at his plate. My mother's hand tightens slightly around her wine glass. Tommy looks up from where he'd been quietly pulling apart a dinner roll. Claire continues, still pleasantly. I'm not judging. It's just I didn't know. None of us really knew what you were going through, and I guess it made me wonder how things really are now. Are you doing okay? Financially? There's a version of this question that is genuine. This is not that version. The timing is too precise, the audience too deliberate. This is the food stamps question, and Claire knows exactly what she's doing with it. I look at her for a moment. She holds my gaze with the particular confidence of someone who believes they're holding all the cards. I'm doing great, I say. Thank you for asking. Because we worry, my mother says. You're all the way down there alone. I'm not alone. You know what I mean. I have a good life, Mom. I have a team I love. I have a work that matters to me. But are you stable? Claire presses. Financially stable? Claire presses. Financially stable? Because Bradford and I were talking, and if you ever needed to net anything from you, I say. Quietly, without heat. She blinks. I mean that kindly, I add. I'm good. Bradford clears his throat. It's just that the cost of living in Raleigh, even Raleigh, has gone up quite a bit. For someone in early stage tech without a steady salary, I have a salary. How much? My father asks. He catches himself. Sorry, you don't have to answer that. But Claire is already nodding, like the question itself has confirmed something. We're just saying we're here if you need us. That's all. I eat my prime rib. It's good. Rosa cooked it perfectly, and my mother will describe it later as something she worked on all day. The conversation moves on. Bradford talks about the Berkshire's house. My mother mentions that Claire and Bradford are redoing their kitchen. Tommy says nothing. I say the right things at the right times and refill my own water glass and wait. Dessert is brought out. Chocolate lava cake, which my father orders specifically from a bakery in town. The plates are set down. Rosa pours coffee. And then her phone. Rosa's phone buzzes with a message she wasn't expecting. She steps toward me quietly, as we'd arranged, and sets her iPad at the corner of the table near my place setting, tilted so the screen faces outward. The headline is already loaded. Forbes, America's most quietly powerful founders. Meet Laurel Voss, 31, the woman who built a $2.3 billion cybersecurity company without anyone in Silicon Valley seeing her coming. There is a photograph. It is me. It is not a flattering photo in the way that posed photos are flattering. It's the kind that captures something real, A laugh caught mid-sentence in our Raleigh office, sunlight from the east-facing windows. I look like myself. I look like someone who didn't need anyone's approval to get here. I watched the moment land. My father sees it first. He leans forward, squints. Then he goes very still. My mother makes a small sound. Not a word, just a sound. Claire's fork stops halfway to her mouth. She sets it down. She picks up the iPad. She reads the headline again. She reads it a third time. Bradford says, "What is?" and then stops. Tommy leans over to look. Then he looks at me. And then, quietly, with something in his face I haven't seen from him in years, something that looks like uncomplicated pride, he says, "Holy shit," and catches himself. I eat my chocolate lava cake. It's excellent, Laurel. My father's voice is different now. The quality of it has changed completely. This says 2.3 billion, I confirm. Valuation as of last quarter. We just closed a Series D. Why didn't you? He stops. Starts again. Why didn't you tell us? I have thought about how to answer this question for a long time, because I always knew it was coming. I have rehearsed different versions. The gracious version, the wounded version, the version where I list every dinner conversation where I was dismissed, every still and every coding thing and every 60% of startups fail. But sitting here now, I find I don't want any of those versions. Because I didn't need to, I say. I needed to do the work. I didn't need anyone to believe in it while I did. My mother's eyes are wet. I don't know entirely what that's about. Guilt, pride, relief, some complicated mixture of all three that probably doesn't have a name. Claire is still holding the iPad. She hasn't said anything. I watch her process it. Watch the sequence of emotions she can't quite suppress because Claire has never been as controlled as she thinks she is. First, disbelief. Then something that looks almost like injury. Then slowly, something she's trying to arrange into warmth but hasn't quite got there yet. The food stamps thing, I say, addressing her directly. That was real. I was 26. I just left my first job to start the company. I had $11,000 in savings. And yes, I was on SNAP for 7 months. I also borrowed $8,000 from mom and dad, which I wired back with interest in 2021. You can ask them. I pause. I'm not ashamed of any of it. Assistance programs exist because hard things happen to people who are working as hard as they possibly can. There's no version of that story where I was failing. I was building. Silence. My father puts his hand flat on the table. Laurel, he says, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything right now, I tell him. Honestly, tonight I just wanted dinner. It's mostly true. I stay for another 40 minutes. I have coffee, I hug my mother, who holds on longer than usual. I clap Tommy on the shoulder and tell him that whatever he wants to do with his life, he should do it. And he looks at me with the expression of someone who has just been given permission they didn't know they were waiting for. Bradford shakes my hand in the hallway. He's trying very hard to say the right thing and not quite landing it. That's okay. I don't need him to land it. Claire walks me to the door. For a moment in the foyer, it's just the two of us. I didn't know, she says. Her voice is quiet. Some of the architecture has come down. I know you didn't. I shouldn't have said it like that, the food stamps thing. No, I agree. You shouldn't have. She nods. There are things she could say next. Explanations, defenses, apologies. She doesn't say any of them, and I actually respect that more than if she had. Some reckonings need to sit in silence for a while before they become anything useful. Drive safe, she says. I always do. Rosa hands me my coat at the door. We exchange our usual look, hers knowing, mine grateful. I've always suspected she's watched variations of this family dynamic for 11 years and formed opinions she'll take to her grave. I hope someday I can properly tell her I see her too. The night air outside is cold and clean. November in Connecticut bites. I sit in my Honda Civic for a moment before starting the engine. The dashboard clock reads 9:47 p.m. I'm not sitting there feeling triumphant. That's the part that surprised me somewhere in the last few months as this moment got closer. I expected to feel triumphant. I thought I wanted that. The gasp. The silence. The moment the Forbes page loads and a table full of people realize they had the wrong idea about me for a decade, what I actually feel is something quieter. Something that doesn't have a clean name. There were 7 months when I bought groceries with an EBT card and felt this specific shame of being looked at in the checkout line, and I built something anyway. There were 2 years of 18-hour days in a converted warehouse space in Raleigh, with a team of 6 people who believed in what we were doing when nothing we were doing had been proven yet. There were calls I almost didn't make and contracts I almost lost, and a moment in the spring of 2022 when I sat in my car in a parking garage and cried for 40 minutes because I didn't know if we were going to make it. We made it. My family didn't see any of that. That's on them and it's on me, and I'm not sure the accounting of blame is the most interesting thing about the story. What I know is this. I didn't build this company to prove anything to anyone in that dining room. I built it because the problem we were solving was real and nobody else was solving it the right way, and I was the person standing in front of it, so I went ahead. The Forbes cover is a byproduct, so is the valuation. So is tonight. I start the car. The drive back to the airport is 40 minutes on empty highway. I have an early flight to Raleigh in the morning, and tomorrow afternoon I have a call with a potential partner in Austin, and next week we start the process of building out the new security division. And there's so much work still ahead of me that thinking about it feels less like weight and more like space, like a room with good light that I get to keep walking into. Somewhere around exit 9, my phone buzzes on the passenger seat. I don't look at it until I hit a red light at the airport access road. It's Tommy. A text. I want to drop pre-law. Can I call you this week? I smile at my windshield. Call me anytime, I write back. I pull into the rental car return. I take my bag from the trunk. I think about the woman in the checkout line at the Kroger on Hillsborough Street 7 years ago, watching the EBT card go through and bracing for the look from the person behind her. The small flinch that becomes so automatic you stop noticing you're doing it. I wish I could tell her something. Not about the Forbes cover or the Series D or the valuation. Just that the flinch goes away eventually. That what you're building in the years when no one believes in it is still being built. That survival and ambition are not different things. That the people who laughed, if they ever had to look at what you made, would not be laughing anymore. The airport doors slide open. I don't look back. I thought a lot about what that dinner actually cost me. Not the drive up to Greenwich, not the flight back. The real cost, the one I paid years before that evening, was staying quiet while people I loved built the wrong picture of me, and I let them, because I was too busy building something real to stop and argue about the picture. That's the part nobody talks about when they tell a story like mine. They talk about the Forbes cover, the valuation, the moment Claire's fork stopped midair, and yes, that moment existed. But what made it possible wasn't strategy or patience or some quiet plan for revenge I was running in the background. What made it possible was that I genuinely stopped needing their approval somewhere around year 2, when the work got hard enough that there was no room left to care what anyone in Greenwich thought of my car. There's a cause and effect to this that I think it's misread. People look at a story like Laurel's, look at my story, and they see the ending first. The billion-dollar valuation, the table going silent. And they reverse engineer it into something intentional, like I was playing a long game. I wasn't. I was just doing the next necessary thing, every day, for years, and refusing to let shame be the thing that stopped me. That's all it was, and that's everything. The food stamps weren't a detour. The borrowed $8,000 wasn't a failure. They were the cost of doing something real when I had nothing but the idea and the willingness to be wrong in public for as long as it took. Integrity isn't about having clean hands at every moment. It's about knowing why you're doing what you're doing and not letting hard circumstances become the reason you quit. What I didn't expect, what genuinely surprised me, was Tommy. His text that night asking if he could call, asking for permission to drop the path everyone had already decided was his. He watched what happened at that table and took something different from it than everyone else did. Not the Forbes part, the permission part, the part where someone said out loud, "I built what I wanted to build and it turned out to matter, and I didn't ask anyone's blessing first." That's the thing I'd want anyone to take from this. Not the ending. The middle. The years that looked, from the outside, like stagnation, like struggle, like a woman in her late 20s scanning groceries with an EBT card and hoping nobody she knew was in line behind her. Those years were not wasted. They were the exact years the work required. Intelligence without the willingness to be uncomfortable is just potential. Potential without follow-through is just a story you tell yourself about what you could have done. Claire didn't give me anything that night except a question I'd already answered. The answer just finally had somewhere to land. I don't hold it against her. I genuinely don't. What I hold on to instead is the drive back to the airport, the cold air, the empty highway, the feeling of having nothing left to prove and everything left to do. That feeling is the whole point. I hope someday everyone gets to feel it, regardless of how they got there or what it cost them on the way.